there were some people in Carroll County who may have had incentive to go back looking for old tips, looking for something. In the absence of anything that they could make stick against Keegan Kline, they needed something at the very least to justify the amount of money they lit on fire searching that river for something. I don't think they did it for any other reason other than they thought there's got to be something in there if we can just find it. But when they didn't, they went back looking for something to justify it. They came across an old interview for someone that was never on their radar. That should have been the first red flag. The fact that it wasn't on any of their radar, the only reason for that is for there to have been no reason for that person to be on their radar. I think it would make more sense for Dan Dulin to have written up a report after talking to Richard Allen and then forgetting about it, because Richard Allen had nothing valuable to offer. Nothing he had to say would have helped the investigation because he was there earlier in the day, not later. And I started putting together all of the news reports leading up until the first time they were going to go back to the beginning. Both Sergeant Riley and Tony Slocum were specific about reevaluating previous tips and interviews. People that they had dismissed, they were going to give another look. The first time they acknowledged that to the media was in March of 2017. So there's a problem with the facts of the case according to Tony Liggett, the way he presented it to a judge. And then we have the report citing an investigative source and murder sheet saying there was a clerical error. And the FBI responded explaining they reviewed the facts of the matter, which I took as we checked the log report of that case file. We looked at which authorized users accessed and contributed to that report, and we found no clerical error, no misfiling. They were pretty clear that there was not a problem with that report or how it was handled. You wouldn't need special training to understand what it would mean if anyone told you to your face that a man went to the trail around the same time the girls went missing. But if you were part of that investigation and you interviewed someone who told you that to your face, how do you walk through headquarters and sit through a morning briefing every day where everybody has one goal: to find the man on the same trail around the same time as the girls? If you interview someone who says they saw anyone on the day two girls disappeared for their bodies to be found the next day instead of for them to be found alive and well, grounded for the rest of their life, how is the potential follow-up information you pass on to the FBI to maybe figure out who the three girls were at Freedom Bridge? If someone tells you they were there that day around the time it happened, that's what would go in the supplemental report to follow up on. That would be your new obsession. That man would be all you could think about, because the whole country had been looking for this person, looking for anyone with any information about anyone they knew who could have been there on that trail at that time. He would have come up with an excuse to keep Richard Allen there. He would have radioed something in to headquarters, telling every one of those detectives to get their ass over there now. This man just told me he was there from 1:30 to 3:30. If you're one of those people who think that the other conservation officer was actually the person who took the report and Dan Dulin just fucked it up and didn't read it or passed it on without paying any attention, that doesn't account for why the honorable officer, who we should believe, also didn't become obsessed with Richard Allen. Dan Dulin's report to have said what Liggett told a judge it said, that would mean Dan Dulin completely missed the mark, but not only him, but whoever he forwarded the information to missed the mark. But it's now two people Liggett is claiming not only missed the mark, but didn't even remember it. Then when Liggett magically found this tip narrative that an entire multi-agency task force couldn't pull up in a simple search query, if there was a report that placed someone there that day, it didn't matter what time it was, it didn't matter what their name was. Anything Dan included in his report would have been as discoverable for investigators going back to the beginning in 2017 as it was for investigators in 2022. I'm not able to just accept it as a clerical error or someone misfiling it, because if that were the case, now we're talking at least 3 people who missed it when they went back to the beginning, starting in March, that reevaluate anything to make sure they didn't miss anything in case something was misfiled or downgraded or marked as less important. They went back to review interviews to see if there was any indication of that with any interview in case they missed something. Is this another one of Tony Liggett's? Well, the person said this. I believe they meant something entirely different that they didn't say or write. That's my concern. How Dan Dulin could sit in that morning briefing every morning after walking through headquarters and not bring it up once. Like, hey, what happened to that man I interviewed who placed himself on the same trail around the same time as the girls? Whatever happened to him? Who followed up with him? Prosecutor needs to go. He should have gotten a special prosecutor from the get-go. That dummy is walking around with pinky promises from guards and wardens about how they haven't done anything wrong, and in fact, they've gone out of their way to be extra good. Like, that one guard actually said he went out of his way to be gentler with Richard Allen, because guards are notorious for being kind and humane with inmates accused of crimes against children. They pinky promised him everything was good, and that was what he presented to a judge. And the judge took that pinky promise from the prosecutor and then accused the defense attorneys, who actually documented shit, can actually back up their claims. They were the ones accused of lying. And then she appoints a couple of attorneys from her playhouse. And when they come back and say, yeah, there's something going on here, this is not normal, we are unable to protect this man's rights in this situation that is completely fixable, but the prosecutor continues working with the judge not to fix. I don't know if it's a leverage tactic. I don't know if it's just hoping that he'll crumble before they get him out of there. And so they think, well, if we can just keep bullshitting our way out of letting him have the same representation that everybody gets for a reason. I mean, I don't understand these pressure tactics if the goal is to solve the girl's murder and prove it in a court of law. This looks more like wanting to clear a case they can't solve. I think that's what's bothering me, because the moves they're making are boxing us all into a corner where we either have to accept it, knowing full well that this is not resolution, and anybody who comes back later with more evidence or questions will have every right to do so, because none of this is settled. Nothing is clear, and it's frustrating because a lot of this stuff should be really easy to clear up. Was this man on this trail at the time they say he was or not? People have been very kind as far as I can tell. Nobody has come out and said anything like, oh, I knew it. And I know people go the Ted Bundy route where they're like, well, Ted Bundy's wife thought he was awesome. That's because she didn't know he was out killing people. There's no indication this man has done that before. He hasn't been like killing people and like manipulating everybody around him so well that they have no idea he's out killing people, because the police have said there are no crimes that they can connect anything like this to. So like, this would have been his first time, which also makes no sense and also requires mental gymnastics, but that's a whole other issue. My point is, those girls deserve an investigation and a trial that provides us with what we need to say, this is what happened to them. And this guy, if he wants to file an appeal, fuck him, because he did it. We all know he did it. We don't have any of that. We have, kind of looks like him, but the picture's blurry. We have no actual police work investigation to rely on. They're wanting us to rely on him outing himself, and then no evidence to back it up. Anybody can come forward. That's why they hold stuff close to the vest. So if somebody comes forward pretending that they had something to do with it and didn't, it limits that. So if somebody comes forward saying that's them and there's no evidence to back it up, I can't give that any more weight than Elvis Field's thing where he told his sister he was on the bridge that day and that Abby was such a troublemaker, he had to give her horns. If Richard Allen said it, though, that'd be another thing Nick McClellan was blurting out in court, even though he has nothing to back it up with, like he's done before, hoping that that'll be enough for the bloodlust people to just not care whether or not we have the right guy or not. I want to believe they have the right guy, but I can't. I don't. I've tried. They're making it impossible. They got to give us something. This is not right. Something is not right.